The humans called it the Ghost Circuit, and that should have been our first warning. I am Vorkath, Senior Tactical Analyst for the Meridian Collective, and I have spent 3 decades studying warfare across 17 galaxies. I have witnessed the Kralix swarm consume entire star systems. I have observed the Thanari mind plague reduce civilizations to gibbering husks. I have even survived the Cascade event at Proxima 7, where reality itself decided to take a vacation. But nothing prepared me for what those insane primates did with salvaged technology and what they cheerfully described as, quote, spare parts from Jerry's garage. Let me paint you a picture of absolute lunacy. Suspense. It started 6 cycles ago when our listening post at Sector 9 picked up something impossible. A signal. Not just any signal, but a quantum-encrypted transmission using technology that shouldn't exist outside of collective military installations. The transmission was bouncing through 17 different relay points, each one more improbable than the last. Sir, you need to see this. Krell, my junior analyst, chirped nervously. His eye stalks were doing that twitchy thing they do when he's discovered something that will ruin my day. I floated over to his console, my sensory tendrils already tingling with dread. What fresh horror have the humans cooked up now? The signal originated from Earth Colony Harvest Moon 3. But sir, he paused, and I swear his hide turned 3 shades paler. The transmission path is using 37 derelict satellites, 12 abandoned mining stations, and at least 5 pieces of space debris that our sensors classify as literal garbage. Define literal. One of them appears to be a refrigeration unit. Another is registering as a children's toy, specifically something called an action figure Commander Zorg. I closed my primary eyes and tried to remember why I hadn't retired to a nice quiet asteroid belt colony. Of course it is. Continue. Laugh. Krell pulled up the trajectory map, and my afternoon went from bad to catastrophic. The humans had somehow, impossibly, created a communications network using trash, not repurposed equipment, not cleverly modified technology. Actual, genuine, thrown-away garbage. How is this even functioning? I demanded. We don't know, sir. According to every physical law we understand, it shouldn't be. The refrigeration unit alone should have burned up in atmospheric re-entry 4 years ago. Instead, it's acting as a perfect signal amplifier. And the toy, somehow functioning as a quantum relay node. We think they jammed a processor into it. You think? Sir. The readings we're getting suggest they also added a fusion battery, a sensor array, and he checked his notes, eye stalks drooping with confusion. A device called a cup holder. I needed a drink, preferably several. Suspense. The real problem wasn't the garbage network itself. Oh no, that would have been merely embarrassing. The real problem was what the humans were doing with it. Our intelligence division had been tracking a Kralix advance fleet for 2 months. 15 capital ships carrying enough firepower to crack a planet's crust like an eggshell. They were heading straight for the human colony at New Terra, and by every calculation we had, the humans were doomed. The colony had maybe 3 dozen outdated defense platforms and a handful of patrol ships. The Kralix fleet would sweep through them like a meteor through tissue paper. Sir, we should warn them, Krell suggested. We already did, 3 weeks ago. Their response was, and I quote, thanks for the heads up, we've got this. They've got this? Apparently. What followed was either the most brilliant military strategy I had ever witnessed or the most catastrophic accident in the history of warfare. Honestly, with humans, it's usually both. Talking. The Kralix fleet arrived at New Terra right on schedule. Their formation was perfect. Their shields were at maximum. Their weapons were hot and ready. They probably had victory speeches already prepared. Then the Ghost Circuit activated. Sir, we're picking up massive electromagnetic interference across the entire sector, Krell reported, his voice climbing into panic frequencies. It's coming from everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. On our screens, the Kralix fleet formation started to wobble, their communications filled with confusion and alarm, which our translators helpfully converted to increasingly creative profanity. One of their capital ships suddenly veered hard to port, narrowly missing a collision with another vessel. Then another ship started spinning, its engines firing in random directions. Within 90 seconds, the entire Kralix armada was in complete disarray. What are they doing to them? I whispered. Krell's tentacles were typing frantically. I'm detecting localized quantum fluctuations. The Ghost Circuit is generating false sensor readings across their entire fleet. But sir, the power requirements for something like that would be astronomical. They'd need a dozen fusion reactors just to— Let me guess. They're using something ridiculous. Solar panels, sir. Approximately 9,000 of them, spread across the debris field. Solar panels? Apparently they calculated that the combined output, if properly channeled through the garbage network, would generate just enough power to create a sector-wide electronic warfare field. Laugh. But wait, it gets better. Or worse. With humans, the line gets blurry. The Kralix, being the aggressive species they are, decided to fire anyway. 15 capital ships unleashed enough ordnance to sterilize a continent. Missiles, plasma cannons, mass drivers, the whole terrifying arsenal. Every single shot missed. Not because of shields or fancy maneuvering. No, the ghost circuit had convinced the Kralix targeting computers that New Terra was actually 3,000 kilometers to the left of its actual position. The barrage sailed harmlessly into empty space. Somewhere, probably, a very surprised asteroid had a very bad day. This is impossible, I muttered. With humans, sir, that word seems to be more of a suggestion. Suspense. Then the humans counterattacked. Their patrol ships, all 37 of them, came screaming out from behind New Terra's moon. They should have been target practice for the Kralix fleet. Should have been vaporized in seconds. Instead, something else happened. The ghost circuit did this thing. This absolutely insane thing, where it made each human ship appear on Kralix sensors as a capital-class dreadnought. All 37 patrol ships suddenly registered as massive warships, bristling with weapons they didn't actually have. The Kralix panicked. You have to understand, the Kralix don't panic. They're genetically engineered for aggression and fearlessness. Panic was literally bred out of their species 14 generations ago. They panicked anyway. Half the fleet tried to retreat. The other half tried to engage. Several ships got confused and tried to do both simultaneously. The resulting chaos looked like someone had thrown a bucket of starships into a blender and hit the chaos setting. Sir, the humans are launching something, Krell reported. On screen, we watched as New Terra's defense platforms started firing. Not weapons. Oh no, that would be too conventional. They were firing more garbage, chunks of metal, broken satellites, one thing that looked suspiciously like a very large sofa. All of it accelerated to ridiculous speeds and hurled directly at the Kralix fleet. Are they seriously using a kinetic trash cannon? I asked nobody in particular. It appears so, sir, and the ghost circuit is making each piece of debris register as an armed warhead. The Kralix ships scattered. Their point defense systems went into overdrive, desperately trying to shoot down what they thought were incoming missiles. Plasma bursts filled space, incinerating perfectly harmless junk. Meanwhile, the actual human missiles, all 12 of them, slipped through the gaps unnoticed because the Kralix sensors were too busy tracking the weaponized sofa. Talking, 3 Kralix ships took direct hits. Their shields collapsed, their hulls breached, and while they were busy with damage control, the human patrol ships swept in and started picking them apart with surgical precision. This should not be working, I said for probably the 15th time that hour. And yet, sir, and yet, the battle, if you could call it that, lasted another 23 minutes. By the end, 7 Kralix capital ships were crippled or destroyed. The remaining 8 had retreated to minimum safe jump distance and were frantically calculating hyperspace coordinates. New Terra hadn't lost a single ship. Suspense. The ghost circuit stayed active for another 3 hours, making sure the Kralix fleet kept running. Then, slowly, it started to power down. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from New Terra, Krell announced. Put it through. The face that appeared on my screen belonged to a human female named Commander Julia Voss. She had short, dark hair, a scar across her left cheek, and the kind of smile that suggested she knew exactly how badly she'd just violated every conventional military doctrine in existence. Meridian Collective Vessel, this is New Terra Defense Command. Just wanted to say thanks for the warning about the Kralix. Real sporting of you. I tried to find words, several languages worth of vocabulary, and I couldn't form a coherent sentence. Julia's smile widened. Oh, and tell your analyst that Commander Zorg action figure is not garbage. My kid wants that back when we're done using it as a quantum relay. The transmission cut off. I stared at the blank screen for a very long time. Sir, Krell ventured carefully. Should we file a report? File a report saying what exactly? That the humans defeated a Kralix armada using garbage, solar panels, and a child's toy? That they turned space debris into the most effective electronic warfare system we've ever witnessed? That they weaponized a sofa? Well, when you put it like that, laugh. I pulled up the tactical analysis data. The numbers didn't lie. The humans had just demonstrated a communications and warfare technique that would take our best scientists decades to replicate. They'd done it with salvaged junk and what I was increasingly certain was pure stubborn insanity. Krell, How much would it cost to reproduce this ghost circuit using proper military technology? He ran the calculations. Approximately 40 billion credits, sir, plus another decade of research and development, and the humans built theirs with, according to intercepts, roughly 800,000 credits. Most of that was spent on solar panels. Oh, and pizza for the engineering team. Pizza. Apparently it's crucial to human engineering processes. I pulled up a resignation form, stared at it longingly, then closed it. Someone had to document this madness for future generations. Might as well be me. Krell, start a new file. Classification level maximum. Title it Human Combat Doctrine. Case Study 47. What should I put in the summary, sir? I thought about it for a moment. They turned garbage into victory. Somehow, against all logic and reason, they made trash defeat a fleet we thought was unbeatable, and they're probably already planning something even more ridiculous for next time. That's not very professional, sir. Neither are the humans. File it anyway. 3 days after the Battle of New Terra, as the humans were calling it with typical dramatic flair, I made the worst decision of my career. I decided to visit them. Suspense. The Meridian Collective High Command summoned me to their primary station, which is never a good sign. When admirals start paying attention to your reports, it means either promotion or execution, and with my luck, probably both. Admiral Thexnor floated behind his massive desk, all 7 of his eye clusters focused on me with uncomfortable intensity. Vorkath, explain to me how a backwater human colony just humiliated the Kralix Dominion using what your report describes as, quote, absolutely ridiculous nonsense. Sir, I watched the entire engagement. The humans created a functional quantum communications network using discarded materials. They generated sector-wide electronic warfare using solar collection arrays. They convinced Kralix battle computers that trash was missiles and missiles were trash. Then they shot a couch at them. Thexnor's skin rippled with confusion. A couch. A large sitting furniture item, sir. Apparently it belonged to someone named Marcus before he, quote, upgraded to a better one. And this was effective. The Kralix shot at it for 90 seconds, sir. Their point defense systems treated it like an incoming dreadnought. Talking. Sempire. The Admiral made a noise that suggested his grasp on reality was loosening. I want you to go there, to New Terra. Talk to whoever built this ghost circuit. Find out if they're geniuses or lucky idiots. Sir, with humans it's usually both. That's what concerns me. If they can do this with garbage, what happens when they get actual military-grade equipment? That thought had been keeping me awake for 3 nights straight. Understood, sir. I'll leave immediately. Vorkath, one more thing. Sir? Try not to let them talk you into anything insane. Humans have this ability to make terrible ideas sound perfectly reasonable. He had no idea how right he was. Laugh. I arrived at New Terra aboard a diplomatic shuttle, accompanied by Krell and a security detail that looked deeply uncomfortable with the entire situation. The colony itself was smaller than I expected, maybe 300,000 inhabitants spread across 2 continents and 17 orbital platforms. What struck me immediately was the sheer chaos of human construction, buildings that violated 6 different architectural principles, docking bays that seemed to have been expanded using whatever materials were handy. One structure appeared to be half military installation and half shopping center. Sir, is that a restaurant built into their primary defense grid? Krell asked. Yes it is. But why? I stopped asking that question about humans 2 years ago. My sanity improved considerably. We were met at the landing pad by Commander Julia Voss and a tall human male she introduced as Dr. Henry Park, chief engineer of the Ghost Circuit project. Henry had wild gray hair, glasses held together with what looked like adhesive tape, and a shirt that said "I void warships" on the front. This was going to be painful. Suspense. Welcome to New Terra, Julia said cheerfully. I hope the trip wasn't too rough. We've been having some issues with spatial anomalies near the 3rd moon. Issues? I asked carefully. Oh, nothing serious. Turns out when you punch holes in subspace using improvised quantum relays, sometimes reality gets a bit wobbly. We're working on it. Henry adjusted his broken glasses. By working on it, she means we're mostly just avoiding that area and hoping it fixes itself. That is not standard procedure for spatial anomalies, I said. Neither is building a communications network out of garage sale finds. But here we are. Henry grinned. Come on. Let me show you the Ghost Circuit Control Center. It's right this way, next to the bowling alley. The what? Bowling alley. You know, recreational facility. Helps with morale. We walked through corridors that looked like they'd been designed by 5 different species having an argument. Every 50 meters something beeped or hummed or made noises that electronics definitely should not make. Is that duct tape holding that power conduit together? Krell whispered. Don't ask. Trust me. Talking. The ghost circuit control center was exactly as chaotic as I feared. Screens covered every wall displaying data streams that seemed to change format every few seconds. Technicians rushed around with tablets and tools, occasionally stopping to hit something with what Henry called percussive maintenance. In the center of the room sat the control hub, a massive collection of processors, relay nodes and components that looked like they'd been salvaged from 17 different types of technology. Cables ran everywhere, color-coded in a system that appeared to be pure chaos. Beautiful, isn't she? Henry said proudly. That's one word for it, I muttered. Julia pulled up a holographic display. Let me walk you through how it works. We started with the basic problem that our communications infrastructure was garbage. Literally. Budget cuts meant we had to make do with outdated equipment and whatever we could scrounge. So you decided to use actual garbage? I said. No. We decided to make actual garbage useful. Big difference. Henry jumped in, his enthusiasm alarming. See, the thing about space debris is that nobody's watching it. Old satellites, broken equipment, discarded components. They're just floating up there, ignored by everyone, but they're still in orbit. They still have power sources, even if minimal. They still have processors, even if outdated. So we asked ourselves, Julia continued, what if we networked them? What if we created a distributed system using hundreds of small nodes instead of a few big ones? Laugh. Krell was taking frantic notes. But the power requirements alone would be massive. How did you generate enough energy to create a sector-wide jamming field? Henry's grin widened. Solar panels. That's what I told him, I said. He didn't believe me either. We put solar collectors on everything. Satellites, debris, even that refrigerator unit. Then we created a power distribution network that channels everything through the ghost circuit. It's wildly inefficient by conventional standards, but we're not using conventional standards. You're using insane standards, I said. Exactly. Conventional wisdom said it wouldn't work, so we ignored conventional wisdom and tried it anyway. Julia pulled up combat footage from the Kralix battle. The beauty of the system is that it's completely unpredictable. The Kralix were scanning for a central command hub, a main power source, something they could target and destroy. Instead, they found hundreds of tiny nodes, each one contributing a little bit to the overall effect. Like a swarm, Krell said thoughtfully. Exactly like a swarm. Take out 10 nodes, and 90 more pick up the slack. The system adapts in real time. Suspense. Henry led us deeper into the facility, past rooms filled with equipment that looked like it belonged in a museum. The real breakthrough came when we figured out quantum signal bouncing. Instead of sending information directly, we bounce it through multiple relay points, each one adding encryption and misdirection. That shouldn't work, I protested. Signal degradation alone would make it useless after the third bounce. Shouldn't work, yes. Doesn't work with normal technology, absolutely. But we're not using normal technology. He stopped at a workbench covered in components. This is what makes it possible. He held up a small device maybe 8 centimeters across, covered in circuits that hurt my eyes to look at. What is that? We call it a probability stabilizer. Basically, it convinces quantum particles that they're definitely in one state or another, which reduces signal degradation to almost zero. That's not how quantum mechanics works. Tell that to the quantum particles. They seem pretty convinced. Krell's eye stalks were drooping with confusion. How did you even develop this? Henry shrugged. Trial and error, mostly. We tried about 400 different configurations before we found one that didn't explode or create temporal anomalies. Temporal anomalies? Only small ones. And they fixed themselves. Mostly. Talking. Julia took over before I could process that nightmare. The point is, we've created a defensive system that costs almost nothing to maintain, can't be easily destroyed, and is effective against opponents with vastly superior technology, at the cost of violating approximately 37 laws of physics, I added. 38, actually. We discovered a new violation last week. A technician ran over looking excited. Commander Voss, we just picked up another Kralix scout ship at the edge of the system. Julia's expression shifted instantly to combat readiness. Distance. 4 light hours. They're being cautious this time. Good. Let's show our Meridian guests what happens when someone tries to sneak up on us. She turned to me. Want to see the ghost circuit in action again? I probably should have said no. I definitely should have said no. But scientific curiosity won over common sense. Show me. Suspense. The control center erupted into organized chaos. Technicians called out readings, screens lit up with tracking data. Henry rushed to the main console, his fingers flying across interfaces. Activating Ghost Circuit in stealth mode, he announced. Targeting single vessel with misinformation protocol Delta 7. What's protocol Delta 7? I asked. Julia grinned. Watch and learn. On the main screen we watched the Kralix scout ship moving cautiously through the outer system. It was scanning everything, clearly trying to gather intelligence without getting too close. Then the Ghost Circuit activated. The scout ship suddenly changed course, turning hard toward what appeared to be empty space. Its engines fired at maximum, accelerating toward nothing. What did you do? Krell asked. Henry was giggling. Actually giggling. We convinced their sensors that they detected a cloaked human battleship at those coordinates. They're moving to investigate. There's nothing there. We know that. They don't. The Kralix ship reached the empty coordinates and began intensive scanning. Their confusion was almost palpable through the sensor readings. Now we hit them with Phase 2, Julia said. ADLA. More nodes activated across the debris network. The Kralix ship systems started reporting multiple contacts all around them. Phantom vessels that didn't exist, weapon signatures that were pure fiction, an entire ghost fleet materialized on their screens. They're trying to transmit to their command, a technician reported. Jam it, Julia ordered. Already done. Their message is being bounced around 47 relay points. By the time it reaches Kralix space, it'll be so garbled it'll sound like poetry. The scout ship panicked, exactly as predicted. It spun in place, trying to track targets that weren't there, broadcasting emergency signals that went nowhere. Then Henry did something truly diabolical, activating the welcome protocol. The what protocol? I demanded. Every screen in the Kralix ship, we would learn later, suddenly displayed the same message in perfect Kralix script. Hello, you have reached New Terra space. Your scan has been detected. Please enjoy this complimentary music selection while we prepare your escort home. Then their ship's internal speakers started playing what humans call heavy metal music at maximum volume. The Kralix scout ship fled, full power to engines, maximum acceleration, leaving a trail of panicked transmissions in its wake. Henry was laughing so hard he had tears in his eyes. Works every time. Talking. I stared at the screens, trying to process what I'd just witnessed. You tortured them with music. It's not torture. It's psychological warfare. Big difference. You violated their computer systems, filled their heads with false data, then blasted them with audio designed to cause distress. When you say it like that, it sounds mean. Julia patted my shoulder sympathetically. Look, we could have blown them up, we could have captured them. Instead, we sent them home with a story that will terrify every Kralix commander who hears it. Next time they think about attacking New Terra, they'll remember the ghost fleet and the terrible music. She had a point. A disturbing, completely insane point, but a point nonetheless. Krell was reviewing the data logs, his eye stalks quivering with either excitement or horror. Sir, the efficiency of this system is remarkable. They just executed a complex military operation using less power than our shuttle consumes during docking. I noticed. Henry leaned against a console. The best part is we're constantly improving it. Last week we figured out how to make debris pieces look like mines. Next week we're testing a protocol that makes enemy ships think their own wingmen are hostile. That's horrifying. That's effective, and it keeps our people safe without firing a single shot. Suspense. Admiral Thexnor was not going to believe my report. I barely believed it myself, and I'd seen everything firsthand. Julia walked us back to the landing pad, Henry trailing behind while explaining something about quantum probability and why it was more of a suggestion than a rule. So what do you think? Julia asked me directly. Geniuses or lucky idiots? I considered my answer carefully. You're insane, every single one of you. You've taken warfare and turned it into some kind of elaborate practical joke. You've violated so many physical laws that reality itself seems confused. You've weaponized garbage, furniture, and apparently breakfast cereals, if that box I saw in the control center was functional. It's measuring cosmic background radiation, but go on, and somehow, impossibly, it works. You've created something that will change how everyone thinks about military technology. You've proven that innovation matters more than resources, that creativity defeats raw power. Julia smiled. So geniuses, insane geniuses, the worst kind. Laugh. As our shuttle lifted off, I watched New Terra recede below us. That chaotic collection of buildings and orbital junk had just demonstrated something terrifying. The humans weren't just survivors. They weren't just clever. They were the kind of species that looked at the impossible and asked why not. They were the kind of species that turned weakness into strength, limitations into advantages, garbage into weapons. They were the kind of species that would someday, somehow, probably take over the galaxy using nothing but duct tape, solar panels, and sheer stubborn refusal to accept reality's limitations. Sir, Krell said quietly, what are we going to tell the Admiral? The truth. That we're very glad the humans are on our side, because if they ever become enemies, we're all completely doomed. That's not very reassuring, sir. Neither are the humans, Krell. Neither are the humans. As we jumped to hyperspace, I pulled up my resignation form one more time, then I closed it again. Someone had to document this beautiful madness. Might as well be me,